Hey YouTube. So we've talked about the climber, which has all of the basic tools, including scissors, at about 3 ounces. We talked about the Explorer at about 3.7, almost 4 ounces. All the basic tools with a really good Phillips head and a magnifying glass. And we talked about combining these two, either one of these, with a small pliers tool like a Gerber dime, and getting the plier function out of a separate tool. But let's go a little more in depth about probably my favorite. It's hard for me to pick a favorite, but my current EDC is this Swisschamp, and it has everything that the Explorer had, all the basic tools, plus a magnifying glass and this really nice Phillips head, and it adds pliers. Good for pinching and pulling. I wouldn't put any rotational force on it. You could probably turn a nut, but I certainly wouldn't twist or anything like that. Now you can pinch and pull. And it also has a fish scaler. Everybody needs one of those. And a hook and disgorger. If a fish swallows a hook really deep down, you can hold the line, press that into the crook of the hook, and hopefully get it out. And a ruler, which is in metric and inches. That's only 3 inches long, but there it is. And a fish scaler, which I've never used, and I never would use it because I don't want to get fish scales inside my knife. It also has a file and a saw, and I use my saw, so that's why it's looks like that. It's a good saw, not very long, but I use it in the orchard, just to save me from having to walk back to the shed to get proper pruning tools. I wouldn't do any serious pruning to any trees that you really like or care about, or do a lot of it, because it leaves kind of a jagged edge compared to proper pruning tools. But cutting limbs that are below the scion, that's still on the rootstock and not up on the fruit tree, I'll certainly, every time I see one, instead of walking back and getting a pair of loppers, I will just cut it off with that. Works on PVC too. I'll roll in some footage of that, and then you can use the file to kind of smooth over the edges. Just a little introduction, and then I will go into this a little more deeply. Okay, so for scale tools, it comes with a toothpick, straight pan, a micro screwdriver, pair of tweezers, and a pressurized ink pen. So these are plus scales. As for the tools on the bottom, you've got a really good sewing awl. This is very handy. A parcel hook, not so handy. Some people find it handy, not me. It's got a little dolphin screwdriver, so just a little mini screwdriver, a really sharp chisel, and your standard corkscrew. On the opening layer side, you've got a can opener with a small screwdriver that can be used for Phillips heads. Got a good flathead screwdriver, bottle cap lifter, wire bender stripper, that's what they're calling it. A really, really good 3-dimensional screwdriver, Phillips head. It's got a really good positive half stop. A really good positive half stop. And so does the flathead. Really good positive lockup. And that's due to a little keyway that is milled into the back, and that hooks into the back spring. Really good positive lockup on that. You also have a really good magnifying glass. I think it's about 5x. A pretty decent pair of pliers, good for pinching and pulling. I don't think I would do a lot of rotational force on that, but you could turn a little bit, but really good for pinching and pulling. And a really good pair of scissors. Let me close this. These are really, I wouldn't have a Swiss Army tool that did not have scissors on it. These are really, really good. And the Phillips head also has that little keyway milled in there that will hook into the back spring. So it's a lot of pressure to get that to break loose. Got a really, really good three-dimensional Phillips head. And on the cutting layer side, you've got your main blade. Got a little pin blade. I use this one the most. Really good file. That's double-sided, and it has some cutting edge on the bottom there that's really good. And a really handy saw that I use quite a bit. And a fish scaler hook disgorger that I never use. It would be good to poke at things that you didn't want to touch. Other than that, I haven't really found a lot of use for it. But a very handy knife. It's 6.5 ounces, so it is a bit of a brick in your pocket, but a little pocket suspension hook like that attached to the lanyard loop that will hang in your pocket. It's not too bad. Sometimes I will carry this in my sling bag, and I'll carry, a smaller Swiss Army knife and maybe a modern folder or something on my person. But there it is, a really, really good multi-tool. I think the purpose of a multi-tool is not to replace tools, but to keep you from having to walk to the toolbox. So I have tools at home, and I have tools in my truck, and I have a few tools in my office. But just to have something in my pocket to save me a few steps back to the toolbox. Okay, well, I'll leave it at that. Thanks a lot.